Hello there everyone, and welcome to another edition of Lydia's Crafty Corner with me, Lydia, in my little crafty corner. So today we're going to be doing a little bit of faux masking, actually using dies. So to start with, I am going to be using the Happy Flowers stamp and die set for the main focal image of this card. I have a panel here which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and what I've done is I've taken the largest flower from the Happy Flowers stamp set and I'm going to stamp this into place onto my panel. So for the base layer here, I will be using the Volcano Lake ink. Now, as with all masking, you are going to want to add in the image that you want in the forefront first. So this large flower that I'm adding will be the one that is at the front, and everything else is going to be kind of masked, but in a different kind of way. So once I have that first layer down, I am going to add in the second layer. I'm firstly lining up that inside portion that didn't stamp, and I'm then going to add line up the top and the bottom of this flower here. So for this second layer here, I am using the Lagoon ink. Now all of the images from this stamp set only actually have 2 layers, but they're still really beautiful and detailed, and I do love them. Especially having those 2 layers makes everything really so quick. So once I have done the flower, I'm then going to move on to the flower center, and I'm just going to pop this into place into the center. So for the base of this one, I am using the Chamomile ink, and I'm then going to move on to the second piece of this flower center. I'm going to line that up, and for this one here, I will be using the Snapdragon ink. So once that is in place, that means that this flower is then complete. I'm then going to take the coordinating die for this stamp, and I'm just going to pop that around the image. So once it's in place, I'm just going to add a little bit of tape to either side. This is a satin masking tape from Alter New. Once that's done, I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. Once that's been run through, you can see that that's just going to pop out, and that is going to be my first element. Now, when I stamp anything kind of around this, once I have that image out, that is going to kind of act as my mask. So that kind of negative space there is already acting as some kind of mask. So I am then going to stamp my second flower. So as you can see, anything that goes over that bit that we've just taken out is in theory going to be masked. So this is our faux masking technique with dies here. So for the base layer of this second image here, I will be using the Pinkalicious ink. So I'm just going to stamp that onto my image, pop the image into place where I want it to be, overhanging that negative space area to create the faux masking effect, and then pop that down. Once I have that beautifully stamped, I can then take the second layer of this flower. As before, this one's only got 2 layers, so I'm again lining up that center point of the image that didn't stamp, and then the top and bottom petals as well. For this layer here, I will be using the Rubellite ink, so I'm just going to ink that up and then pop that into place. I do like using these stamping blocks, but you could definitely use a Misty if you do find those easier, or any other stamping platform that you may have. Once that's done, I'm going to add in the centerpieces as before. So I'm going to be using the same colors as I used for the larger flower. So this base image for the little flower center there was the Chamomile, and I'm then going to move on to the second one. And as before, I will be using the darker Snapdragon ink to add in those beautiful shaded details to the flower center. So I'm then going to take the corresponding die again. I'm going to pop that into place around the stamped image, add a little bit of tape just to keep it in position, and then again run that through my die cutting machine. When you are removing the masking tape once you've die cut, make sure that you kind of pull it back along itself, and that's going to kind of reduce the risk of tearing any of your cardstock. As we're kind of doing this directly into the panel that we're going to be using, you do want to be really careful that you don't tear anything. So once that's done, I'm just going to remove that and then the little flower. You could add another flower at this point if you wanted to, but I am going to go ahead and add in some leaves. Now you do want to make sure that you have a nice kind of border around the edges with none of the images touching that, because if you do, you're going to kind of get rid of the effect of the whole panel because you are going to cut into it. So for the leaves, I am using the double leaf, and I am going into that negative space as before, so it's going to look like these have been masked. For this layer here, I am using the Grassfield ink for all of the different leaves there. I'm then going to move on to the second layer, and for this second layer, I will be using the Shadow Creek ink to add in those beautiful dark details. So I'm just going to go ahead and do all of the leaves the same. Once they've all been inked up, I can then go ahead and do my die cutting again. If you wanted to, you could definitely leave these on the panel just as they are, but I am going to go ahead and die cut these too. So I'm just going to take the coordinating die, pop that around. You can see exactly where you're going to cut because you can see through these open face dies, which I find is really, really helpful. Now, as I am cutting 3 of the same image and they're all slightly different because of the way that they're positioned, I am going to cut them in order. So I'm going to go down my panel, and then once I have cut each of them, I'm just going to line them up so they're in order of where I need to put them in to the jigsaw once I have finished this little task here. So I'm just going to finish this one off here, and then I have all of my die cutting done. It was at this point I did want to add a little bit more of a border around the outside, only because all of my images is kindly shifted over to the left hand side, and by taking 1/4 of an inch off the right hand side and 1/4 of an inch from the top, I kind of centered the whole of this image cluster that we have here. So I was a lot more happy with it once I'd removed that. Once that's done, I'm going to take a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card base. I'm going to pop my little panel into place, adding a nice little border around the outside. And once that's done, I'm just going to keep that into place for now, just using some satin masking tape. So now I can add my little pieces back into place through the die cut panel. I am using some of the double-sided adhesive roll from Altenew. This is the thinnest one, so this is the 1/4 of an inch one, and I'm just adding that behind, and then I'm going to pop these back into place. It is kind of like a jigsaw puzzle where you have to pop in the pieces into the right places. I do find that it helps to work kind of backwards, so whatever you cut first, you will be adding into place last. So whatever you cut lastly will be the first things that go back into place, because they're kind of around the outside edge. So it's easier to kind of pop those in and then find out where the other pieces go. If you did make a huge one of these, where all of the leaves kind of went around the whole of the flower cluster, you wouldn't necessarily be able to get those flowers in perfect place if you did them first. So this is why I recommend that we go from the outside things and then work onto the inside things. So once I have my little flowers into place, my leaves into place, sorry, I can then work on the flowers. So I'm just going to add these in, and then I'm going to pop the flowers in. Now I have moved on to the 1/4 of an inch roll of double-sided adhesive roll for this one here. So I'm just going to pop that on the back. You don't necessarily need to add as much as I'm adding here. You could just add a little spot if you wanted to, but I did just have it all to go, so I just popped it on. So I am popping that largest one in first, and then I can go ahead, add a little bit of that double-sided adhesive behind this last flower, and then pop that one into place too. So once that has been done, I can then remove this little panel that we have here, so we can pop it into place with a little bit of dimension. So I'm just going to carefully remove that so I don't do any ripping at this point. I've then added some double-sided foam tape to the back of the panel. You may need to cut this down into really small pieces if you have some little pieces that you want to kind of pop up a little bit. And then I'm just going to remove all of the backing. You can see that this may take a little time depending on how much area you've got around the outside edge and how easy it is to do as well. Once that's done, I'm just going to carefully maneuver that just so that goes around that little focal cluster that we have there. And you can see that everything's kind of stepped back, all of those images, but you can see that it's got that kind of faux masked technique. For my sentiments, I will be stamping them onto some black cardstock using some white embossing powder. So I'm just going to add some anti-static powder onto some black cardstock before I begin. I will be using the One Go birthday greeting. This is such a clever stamp set. So all of the sentiments are on one stamp and you can see them here. So that means I'm going to stamp all of these in a perfect position just in one go. So I'm popping that into place onto my black cardstock. I'm just going to pick that up using my stamping tool. Once that's done, I'm going to be using some of the embossing ink from Volcano to ink up all of the sentiments all at one time. And it's really, really clever. I love this and it makes me so happy that I just need to do it once, because I do like creating these white and black sentiment pieces, and this is such an easy way to do it. So I'm just going to stamp that into place onto that black cardstock. Once that has all been nicely stamped onto the cardstock, I'm then going to add over some pure white embossing powder from Volcano, tap off any of the excess, and then I am going to heat set that using my heat tool. So once that has been done, we have all of these beautiful sentiments. You could definitely cut into these if you wanted to, just using your scissors and a craft knife. Or if you have the coordinating die, you can pop that into place around all of the sentiments all in one go and then just die cut it once. This makes me so happy. It makes my heart smile a little bit. I am a little bit of a lazy crafter and this is really great for me. So once I've run that through my die cutting machine, all I'm going to do is I am going to push out all of the pieces, and I have tons of birthday sentiments that I can use for all different cards. Yay! I'm just really excited. So once I have all of these sentiments, I then decided I wanted to put more than one on my card because I have lots, so I can definitely play around with them. So once I'm happy with the kind of combination of sentiments that we have going on there, I'm just going to add these again into place using some foam tape. For the smaller ones, all I do is I snip that foam tape in the center of a strip and kind of just half it, so I have a larger strip area. Instead of kind of cutting lots of little tiny strips, I find that this is an easier way to do that. And it also saves a little bit of time too. So I'm popping that into place. You can see that I'm using the grid lines on my mat behind me to kind of keep those sentiments nice and straight. So once those have been popped into position, here is the card complete. I really do hope that you've enjoyed the video today, and also I hope that you like the card too. If you do create a card that was inspired by this, it'd be great if you do share it, because I'd love to see. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and we'll see you again really, really soon. Bye-bye. Hello there, crafty friend, Lydia here. Just popping in to say that you can get your daily dose of crafting tips, techniques, and tutorials just like this by subscribing to the Volcano YouTube channel. All you need to do is click on that little bell up there and you will never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.